is what we call a special status inmate. He came in, he was shackled at his ankles, he was belly chained, meaning he had a belt wrapped around him and his hands were handcuffed in front of him so he couldn't raise his arms, and was brought into Judge Roby's courtroom for that status hearing, and was, again, with 2 special response unit deputies and the court security deputies that are always assigned to that room as bailiffs. As he entered that courtroom, he stepped up to the podium where he was supposed to stay and engage the judge appropriately. But instead of engaging the judge appropriately, he spit first from that distance towards where the judge's dais is. Then he pushed over the podium and he made a run at Judge Roby's position where he was sitting. Our special response units and courtroom bailiffs did exactly what they're trained to do. The special response unit deputies were able to tackle him onto the floor, while if you looked at the video, our court security deputies actually came initially in front of Judge Roby to put a barrier between the defendant and the judge and try to protect him. But as this individual was being tackled to the ground, he turned and spit again and actually struck the judge as he was falling to the ground. All the deputies at that point collectively secured him better than he was already secured, and then removed him from the courtroom. Judge Roby is uninjured. We're thankful for that. Again, the courtroom is the sacred piece of what we do in law enforcement. We arrest people, or there's cases that need to be litigated, but the courtroom is really where justice is served and decided. So it's important to us, important to me as a sheriff, to keep our judges and anybody in that courthouse complex, attorneys, defense attorneys, judges, whoever is there, to keep them safe. And that's what our bailiffs and our special response units did today. I have communicated with the judge through text because he was still on the bench. He didn't miss a beat. He went right to the next case and kept on working, so kudos to him. But he was thankful that our deputies were able to take this individual into custody, get him out of the courtroom, and then keep him safe.
From your understanding, Sheriff, did he exchange any words ahead of this? Did he say anything to the judge before essentially pouncing at him?
So the question was there any exchange of words prior to pouncing on him? It's my understanding that there was nothing to ramp up that confrontation. He went into the courtroom and then immediately did what you'll see on that video, went after the judge. Now I can tell you this, he's been incarcerated in our jail since 2023. He has been deemed multiple times incompetent to stand trial because of mental illness. So he's been evaluated and come back for status hearings, been evaluated again, was recently cleared to be sent away to a state hospital, but then they wanted to do one more evaluation, so that's why he's still in custody. While he's been here, he's been nothing but trouble for our deputies. He's battered several of them anytime they interact with him, when he's actually moving around our jail out of confinement, because that's where he's now housed. He's been a problem. So he's been a problem here, but unfortunately he's got to go to court and get out of the jail at some point. So going into this, we knew he may be a problem. And then again, today he evidenced his desire to hurt someone.
And the shackles, in terms of the way that he was shackled, I mean, is that just determined based on that risk of the detained person acting like this?
It is. So the judges ultimately, they call the shots. It's their courtroom. They run that courtroom as they see fit. And oftentimes you'll see a judge order our courtroom bailiffs, our court security deputies, to unhandcuff somebody or keep their legs shackled but not their hands. In this scenario, everyone knew what they were dealing with, so this defendant stayed locked in place like he was supposed to be. Everybody did the right thing, but this individual had the will to try to hurt somebody, and he tried his best to do that today. He actually did alarmingly well, unfortunately, for the status that he was in. To be able to move for 2 seconds before he was ultimately pounced on, and to be able to spit on the judge is something that alarmed us, but it does remind us that where there's a will, there's a way. So our deputies have looked at it. Of course, they've done a great job, but they went right back to work. They had another physical encounter not long after that in the same judge's courtroom. So this is something that you don't see on the news all the time, but judges really do put themselves out there making legal calls and trying to keep the system running appropriately, but it's a dangerous job for them.
I don't know if you mentioned this already. How many deputies were in the courtroom when this happened? Do you know off the top of your head?
So there was 2 special response units, and then there was 3 courtroom bailiffs. So there was 5 in the courtroom that initially engaged. And then, of course, once you get that Mayday call that goes out to everybody, then you get anybody that's available.
And are you guys looking at possibly changing the way that the inmates are shackled? Because at first I didn't think that his ankles were shackled. He was able to get there so quickly. And granted, the deputies did tackle him quickly as well. But is there any changes that we might see coming on how they're handled when it comes to their restraints?
No, I would say they did things, the system worked like it should. The deputies, if you go back and really critique that video, you'll see the deputies that are standing by the judge's bench. They initially step into the way to put themselves as a barrier between the defendant and the judge. That's their job. They know they train to do that. And then the other deputies, they piled on and took care of the defendant. So I would not suggest any changes. It's just, this is a good reminder of why they're there in the first place.
And could you take us through why, I know you mentioned that he had previous charges for battery of an officer and a judge. Can you just get more into the specifics of that case, what he did to be charged with those?
So I don't know all the specifics, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I know since he was initially arrested in 2023, in our jail, he's battered several of our deputies. So he's had charges added onto what he was initially arrested for, which I believe was a trespassing charge initially. It wasn't that big of a deal. And now he's compounded his problems by committing all these crimes. And eventually, of course, this case will set him back as far as going away to the state mental hospital, but eventually, when he's sentenced again, he'll be shipped away and hopefully get the treatment that he needs, if indeed that'll actually help him. He seems to be one of those ones that there's nothing you can do to help turn the tide.
And just so I completely understand the timeline, is that he was originally charged, put in jail for trespassing. While he's been in jail, he accumulated these battery charges on officers. And do we know how he got that other battery charge on a judge, a separate judge?
He didn't batter the judge, but he was threatening the judge. So I'm not sure yet if that was in person. We've reached out to get the reports for that, but I have not looked at them yet. Again, this happened this morning, and we were trying to get the information out to you, so that's something we will follow up with.
He's facing additional charges now, correct?
Yes, so today is another charge of battery, or a charge of battery on a judge. So that'll hold a lot of weight. Again, he's already sitting in our jail. He's been racking up charges, and this will definitely cost him some prison time.
And I think that some might say, deputies out in the field face great dangers a lot of the times, right? The life's in dangers. When it comes to the deputies in the courtroom, can you speak to how important their job is as well?
Again, one of the most important functions of our society is the judicial system. Having to be able to go in there and execute justice, however that looks, whether somebody is exonerated or convicted of a crime, it's a important piece of our system to be able to go in there and let a jury of your peers or a judge figure out your future. So it's important for all of us to keep that intact, where everyone can come to the courthouse, all of their issues can be heard safely. And so this is a good reminder of, again, why we have court security deputies, why they train. We have a lieutenant over there that's really into tactical training. We give them the tools and the equipment that they need to do that job, and we're proud of the job they did today.
And you mentioned right after this happened, another attack happened on the judge?
Not directly overtly to the judge, but there was another outburst in the courtroom where the judge had told someone to stand down multiple times, ended up holding that person in contempt and giving them over 170 days in jail just because that person was unruly in his courtroom. So then when our bailiffs, our court security deputies, went to fingerprint him, he wanted to struggle with them, and of course that did not work out real well with them. But that's the second time today.
And lastly for me, just overall, so we completely understand that, as far as you know, with this happening today, it was completely unprovoked. The judge didn't make a ruling, didn't say anything. He just walked in and chose to do this.
That's correct. He walked into the courtroom. There was no interaction yet. In fact, the judge is reviewing paperwork, not really quite dialed in on the defendant yet, and the defendant immediately went to overt action on his part, again, highlighting how violent he would be if given the opportunity.
And lastly for me, I'm assuming, correct me if my assumption's wrong here, that the court case that day or his appearance ended with that, or did they continue after that?
That court case ended with this individual tied up extremely well and carried out of the courtroom by about 6 deputies. So I think we have a video that we'll share with you, and you'll see that there was going to be no more court hearings with that individual today.
You guys got anything? Covered it? Sweet.
We good?
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you so much.
Crazy video. Anytime I get a text from Christine, I'm like,
Yeah, and if you guys
today.
happen to have, do you guys happen to have the clean video, not off the computer that we've